everybody. Good evening. Welcome to our February program, and thanks for coming back after a cancellation of our January program. Our speaker lived up near Finland, Tofte area, and they were getting lake effect snow, and we weren't really getting much of anything. So it's good to have you here this evening. One announcement to share with you is a reminder that it is the year 2024, as you may have noticed. And so if you haven't re-upped your Duluth Audubon membership for the year, please visit our Join Renew portal at our website for information to do it online or to mail it into our P.O. box as well. As we get started, we like to share any observations or sightings that we've been experiencing lately. I'd also throw in there, since we didn't meet in January, that if you have a first bird of the year that you'd like to share that's exciting for you, feel free to do that as well. So what have you been seeing? Cardinals?
I did a few really hospitals at the theater. That was life for me this year.
The first black woodpecker.
Excellent. Nice.
We have an interesting flicker that's coming to the theaters. This is the second winter of this. It's an intergrade between red shafted and yellow shafted.
Really?
So we enjoy seeing it.
Yeah. Phenomenal. What else? Anything else?
We had it was a red pulse come through.
Yeah.
Feeding mostly on the captains and birches. It's nice to see them.
Anybody want to share their first bird of the year at all? If anybody can remember a chickadee? I was in Arizona, so mine was a mockingbird, which was kind of fun.
Oh, I was in Brazil and saw a cigana.
Oh, there you go.
That was a pretty unique bird.
Yeah. Anything else you've been seeing? Your first bird of the year observations you want to share? That was like the quickest lightning round of observation sharing we've ever had. Which is okay, because we want to make room for our speaker, Ruben Stenseng, who we are delighted to have to share with us a bit about wild orchids in Minnesota. You may know Ruben from the variety of volunteer things that he does with the Bog and elsewhere. And also, he's a former board member of the Duluth Audubon Society. So, welcome. We're happy to have you with us.
Pressure there. My voice doesn't carry as well as Jeff, so it might start to fade. Just ask for this to be complicated. It's really nice to see everybody here tonight. Thanks for the introduction, Jeff. Again, glad you're here. It's a nice turnout. And this is a presentation about wild orchids in northern Minnesota. I've tried to position this as being kind of fun and light, and I hope it's still informative, educational, and that I mentioned fun and light. So anyway, the title that I really have, the long title, is A Curious Case of the Albino Orchid, and then some other fun facts about orchids in our area. So again, my name is Ruben. I'm not a botanist, I'm a plant enthusiast, and spend a lot of time looking at plants and chasing them, do some volunteer work, specifically with native plants. So, what comes to your mind when you hear the word orchid? It certainly has a certain mystique about that, and so I'll ask for a couple of comments. What comes to your mind when you hear the word orchid? Everyone wants to fall through it. Yeah, that's a few that I've heard of. Any other ones? Yeah.
Oh, no, but things like proms or weddings.
Yeah. What has happened to that? Do they still do that? I'm of the vintage where that's the song. I don't know. But anyway, we're talking about probably not those pretty ones that are used for that purpose, but these are the native ones. So the last item there, the lady slippers are, of course, orchids. some for the other half to start handing out. What that is, it's the official DNR, Minnesota DNR list of the all the known species to occur in Minnesota as far as the orchids. So there's about 49 of them on the list. So about 35 of them are in the Arrowhead region, and I came up with that 35 by looking at iNaturalist and asking for those orchids. And so 35 species in our area of these wild orchids. There's a lot of stuff on this sheet. The green is, in fact, those orchids that are in the Arrowhead region. The ones that have been highlighted in green. The blue number is, I put in there the rank as to number 1 is the most often seen orchid, down to 35, which is the least seen. Did you need something, Jeff?
No, I'm waving at grass.
Okay. And then it's supposed to be a reddish color, but it's, I don't know what it is, but that's state listed, so you see an E after species, it's the endangered, it's listed as endangered, so it's protected. T is threatened, and S is special concern. So that's just for your information. We're not going to use it in any meaningful way. That's the pool of orchids. So what this is not, it's not the orchids that you might be growing in your home, and you perhaps are doing that. Those are, of course, not native. They're from Southeast Asia or something, often in the Phalaenopsis genus, and with all due credit to people who do that, it takes skill and attention and all that. That's not what this is. But orchids really have a lot of unusual characteristics about them, and so some are large and some are small, some are real showy and some are not showy at all. Some we think of plants as being photosynthetic and that they're doing photosynthesis, but there are some orchids that don't do that. So hopefully we'll be able to talk about how they survive with that. All the orchids have 3 petals and 3 sepals, and the sepals are simply that structure that's on the outside of the flower bud. So when the sepals open, then the rest of the flower is free to open. So, and then of those 3 petals, 1 is always modified in some way. So there are 3 petals, 1 of them is modified. It's called the labellum. We just call it bullet. So that petal. Another interesting thing is that the male and female parts of orchids are fused into a simple structure called the column. So the flowers might think of the pollen being over here, and somebody think that here it's all fused into one structure. And then the pollen is not in pollen grains, it comes in a discrete mass. All the pollen stuff is in one grouping, one mass called the pollidium. And then these orchid flowers have bilateral symmetry. Examples are, if you cut a pizza pie, any diameter, you have mirror images. But for orchids, it's like your face, where you do it this way, then you have mirror image. But that's how it works with orchids. And then this is really important, and I don't know how much time we'll have to spend on it, but all of them are absolutely dependent on finding a fungal partner in the soil. Not even germinate. So they are dependent upon that fungus their entire lives, and they know this. And so really critical and complex and poorly understood to research going on with which orchids need which fungal partner and which fungi can support these orchids. So it's really a complicated thing. There are some resources that I would highlight. This first one, Native Orchids of Minnesota, is written by Weldon Smith, and he's the DNR person. He's the state botanist. This is the authoritative book on orchids. Weldon Smith has written similar authoritative books on ferns, sedges, trees and shrubs in Minnesota. So this is the authoritative one, but this one is what I tend to put in has a birthday today? Well, that's the next question. Nobody has it today. Does anybody have a birthday next week? Well, it turns out it was. If you don't, come over here.
Happy birthday.
So if you're not interested, just pay it forward. All right, so let's go on. As I said, I went into iNaturalist and pulled out the orchids, and you can see the arrowhead region. I'll need to explain that to this group. Each little rectangle is a one or more observations that somebody put in there. And so if we look at the numbers here, it says there are 36 species. I said 35. There's natural hybrid between two similar orchids included in here. There were 3 reports of that, but I didn't include that because it's not on the DNR list. So 35. But 642 people have reported orchids. And what I really wanted to say is that the arrowhead is still ripe for exploration, because these areas that are still green, simply, there's orchids there. People just haven't been out looking as intensely. This is Highway 1 up to Ely, and the Ely what are they? Ely Field Naturalists. They're really, committed outdoors. The Saxon Bog, bioblitzes and things like that. So there's just lots of opportunity to play with this. Yes?
Is there a DNR website? Maybe you mentioned it and I missed it.
Oh, the last one?
Yeah.
No, I didn't go into it. I should have. Thanks for bringing it up. But iNaturalist is a online repository to put observations. And in that process, you're documenting the biodiversity in any area. Plus, might be your own personal list of what you've been seeing. So it's iNaturalist, and I'm sorry I didn't. So here's a orchid density map. This legend down here says blue is 60 or more orchids in an area. The light green is 35 to 40. This tan color is 1 to 5 orchids in an area. And so, South Florida, subtropical, 60 orchid species, probably, or more. Up in the Northeast, in that area, there's a lot of green, there's a lot of orchid diversity up there. In Minnesota, that green area that I just circled there is saying that there's about 35 orchid species there. And so the good news is, if you're interested in orchids, the Arrowhead region is the best place to be. That's where we are. And it's good picking. So, and of course, I'm just going to go through this real quickly, but they are sometimes used to indicate the health of an ecosystem. They're sensitive to soil disturbance. If something gets logged off, the orchids are probably going to be gone. Some of them have a long life, like 50 or 100 years, that require a really stable environment. If they're there, things have been really working. But there's a lot of threats, and you know all this because you're all engaged in nature, but loss of habitat, climate change. Poaching is a real issue with orchids. People go dig them up, and I see it every summer, and really discouraging. But invasive species, just like all the other plants, are threatened by that. You're dependent on pollinators, earthworms that change in the soil, and these things are all terrestrial. Some of them live underground for years and years. So as that soil changes, they have an impact. All of our orchids are terrestrial. That is, they don't have any that grow in trees, the epiphytic kind. They're all in the ground. Maybe one possible exception where an orchid that, one of the bog orchids lives in sphagnum moss, and the roots maybe don't quite get to the soil. The fact that the sphagnum moss is supporting it, it's said to be perhaps epiphyte. So anyway, ethics, they usually have a a longer list, but tonight I'm just going to throw out these things. Again, please don't dig them up. They don't survive in general. There are exceptions to that, but just don't dig them up. And then everybody owns every piece of property, whether it's in a ditch or a national park or a city park or your neighbor's flower bed. You know, don't go trespassing, dig things up. And then this one, I ask people to just consider it, to share orchid locations appropriately. So if you're out and you find this wonderful orchid or great gray owl or something, you want to tell people about it. And so the suggestion is, if it's any kind of a rare organism, just be general in how you describe the location. We often say things like, that orchid is out in Jay Cooke State Park, and just have a wonderful time looking for it. Enjoy it as much as I did looking for it. Or something like that. And it holds true for social media. You know, if you put it on Facebook, anybody can see it, and then even with good intentions, they might go and trample it or damage the area, or worse yet, take it. And even iNaturalist, sorry I didn't explain that well, but in iNaturalist you can put these things in, and you have the option of obscuring the location. Then when it shows it to everybody else in the world, it's just a box and a random dot, and it says, it's in here somewhere. And things like purple pitcher plants, if you put something like that in iNaturalist immediately, without even asking you, obscures the location because it's known that people go and dig that up for their backyard water feature. Well, orchids are really complex and amazing, and that's part of the fun of working with them. Get in front of that thing, I guess. Sorry about that. Got great video of my knees. So they're complex, and the pink lady slipper is the most commonly seen orchid in the Arrowhead region. So pink lady slipper is Cypripedium macaulay. Many of you have seen it, maybe all of you, but where have you been seeing this one?
On it along the Cat Trail up in east of Ely, the Cabot Trail.
Oh, I see, yes.
There's literally hundreds.
Okay.
Two sections of it.
Other people, where have you been seeing this? Jim? You didn't hear that, he said in the Stenseng bog along the boardwalks. So it's just hundreds of them. Okay. Anybody else?
Superior hiking trail up by Grand Grade.
Oh, yeah, okay. Sure. It's all in the Arrowhead, and it's a real common orchid. One more? Okay. Sure, they're really common. So we're gonna do a little bit of a deep dive into this one just because it's that most common one. We won't be able to do this with the other orchids, but, and I should say, we're not gonna look at 35 of them tonight. I picked some that I think are interesting, and sort of give you a sense of the diversity and just the craziness of orchids. So, the pink lady slipper, so this one has two basal leaves, that is, leaves down at the bottom of the plant. And it has a flower stalk, and that's not the main stem of the plant, it's the flower stalk. So if you look on your list, you'll see the Cypripedium macaulay, and that's in alphabetic order by scientific name, so maybe you'll find it. It says stemless lady slipper, so that's what the DNR is calling it on this. They don't call it that in any other document, so all this DNR guy doesn't use that as the name, but it's on that list. And so I just want to say a little bit about that. That for me as a plant enthusiast, it's always been confusing. Stemless lady slipper, and I look at it and I say, wow, that sure looks like a stem right there. What's going on? So the stem is actually down here, it's just a compact little thing at the base of the plant, and the leaves are coming off the stem just like you'd expect as a stem sitting up in normal vertical position. And this thing that looks like a stem is not a stem. There are no leaves on that piece, and it is strictly that piece that connects the flower to the stem. And so if the flower isn't there, flower stem wouldn't be there. So here's one of those big glazed slippers that has gone to seed. The part I'm talking about is this right here. It's not the stem, it's just the leaf stalk. Flower stalk, sorry. Anyway, and then 3 petals, and let's see if I can just zoom in a bit. I said they all have 3 petals. And so in this particular species of orchids, here is a petal. That's that modified petal. Every orchid has 3 petals, and one of them is modified in some way. This happens to be just an inflated pouch. And so all of the cypripediums in this genus have an inflated pouch of some kind. Other orchids have other strategies for that, that petal. The lateral petals are just these little things sticking off on the side, and that accounts for the 3 petals. So that lip is that large inflated pouch. And the flower looks really appealing to a pollinator. It has a certain aroma that attracts the pollinator. These flowers are there for the single purpose of attracting pollinators and assisting with the fertilization exercise that these plants go through, like in all plants. There's no photosynthesis going on with the flower or anything like that. It's just there to attract pollinators and help with the pollination. So this one looks really cool. It has a little split down the front that allows the pollinator to enter that. And again, those of you who have seen this probably didn't even know that, because it's not really evident. And then the pollinium is up here at the back, and there's some little exit holes up there right by the pollinium for the eventual pollinator. The typical pollinator for this plant is the queen bumblebee. This is a really blooming orchid. Queen bees or bumblebees are just coming out looking for some food for their nest, things like that. They are attracted to it, and they're strong enough to enter that. But there's no reward. There's no pollen grains, there's no nectar, there's absolutely nothing. It's trickery and deception. Orchids are great at that. So many species of orchids. Some of them actually have a reward for the pollinator in the form of nectar, but many of them just do something tricky. I hope we'll have time to look at some of those. So here's the first look inside. As I said, there's nothing in there. It's just an empty shell. Here I took part of the lip off, half of it. You can see that where the pollinator would go in, those are incurved like that. The pollinator cannot get out. There's just no way out. A little closer. So here's that thing we call the column, where the male and female parts are fused together. And you can see the pollinium, which is the male contribution to the effort. And down here is the female part that will eventually receive the pollen, the pollinium, if everything works right in this pollination exercise. It has a sticky surface on it. So there's also this thing called the rostellum, which might help strip off the pollinium off the pollinator as they arrive, if they have attached to them, to that sticky female part. What happens is that the pollinator gets inside this pouch, there's no way out, can't figure it out, pollinator is disappointed. The only way out is through this little channel going up here to the back of the pouch, the lip. And as the pollinator starts going up there, keep in mind it's a queen bumblebee. This is all sized properly so that as they pass by, there's a sticky foot on that pollinium, it's stuck to the back of the bumblebee. The bumblebee is able to escape, flies off to the next pink lady slipper and says, well, that didn't work very well, but maybe this one. So come in again. Now they have the pollinium attached to their back, and as they go by here, the rostellum and the stickiness here tends to remove that pollinium from the pollinator's back. And the pollinator continues on. If the second pollinium is still there, it might hook up with that. But the point is, it's all about trickery. And adaptation. These things are amazing how they have been adapted to that specific kind of thing to happen. So let's see what else it says here. Okay, I think you probably get the picture. In orchids, the ovary is always behind the flower. In other plants, the ovary or the seed-producing piece is probably in front of the other flower parts. Here it's always behind the flower parts. And if fertilization has happened, then the ovary, seeds start to grow and the ovary starts to swell. And that's what this looks like. The petals now are of absolutely no use and they just fade off. Many of them split a patch, even this one here. Months or even over winter, still see that the petals are there. It's no big deal, but that's what's happening. And then as the seeds mature, this capsule becomes dry and eventually will crack open and release thousands of seeds. For the pink lady slippers, the common convention is it's 10 to 20,000 seeds in that capsule. They're wind dispersed when this cracks open, and I have examples over here. If you want to look at any of those seeds, there's just dust. And all it is a few cells with the genetic material inside a little transparent jacket. And that's all. There's no food, there's no endosperm with it. And so So anyway, they've developed lots of tricks, but that naked seed has to have some incredible luck for it all to work. The seed, wind dispersed, it has to land in the soil, or it can get into the soil, and it has to hook up with its fungal partner. Only then can that fungus, through the network of mycelia, I guess it is, and the hyphae, that they can crack into that little tiny seed and start delivering some moisture and nutrients and carbs, and only then does it have the hope of germinating and starting to grow. So 100% of the orchids are dependent on this fungus thing because of the way the seeds are. And many of the orchids, again, need that relationship big time through their whole life. Well, again, I'm trying to make this a little fun and interesting. But, what do you think is the Minnesota state flower? Oh, well, wait a minute. So, but thanks for saying that, guys. So, do you think it is the European yellow lady slippers, and this group is much too sophisticated to fall for this? But it turns out that it was in 1893, and this is the only picture that isn't mine. All the rest of them are my photos, but I didn't go to Europe to get that. But it was in 1893, and then when the Minneapolis Garden Club recognized that it wasn't the right species, then the embarrassed legislature quickly fixed that in 1902. So you're right, that's not it. How about the pink lady slipper? Anybody think so? I don't want to put you on the spot, but anyway, you'd be surprised how often I do get a reaction when I'm showing people the pink lady slipper. They say something like, "I'm so happy to have seen the state flower." So sometimes, I try to correct it, and sometimes I just let go. I figure, if they're happy, I'm happy. But if you think it is the pink lady slipper, then you're in good company. The Minnesota Secretary of State's website lists all the state symbols, and I have a list of them here. So, what's the state bird? Loon. So, what's the state muffin? Right? Very, very good. That's sophisticated proof. What's the state drink? And again, here in Duluth, I tell people we think it's Pentathlon beer. Secretary of State says it's milk. Milk. The state drink. And then they say, and I'm reading this right from here, from their list, the state flower is the pink lady's slipper. Their website says the state flower is the pink lady's slipper. Of course, we think probably that's not right. But I heard this one, the Cypripedium reginae mentioned, so, yeah, well, I'm a little confused now, but not really, it is, that's the state law. Isn't that cool? So there's one non-native species that's on your list, it's the broadleaf helverine, the Epipactis helverine. And I naturalist, there's exactly one observation posted for that in the arrowhead. But I realized when I saw that, the two locations that I'm aware of, I didn't put those in that naturalist. I did put them into that early detection and distribution map system that some people use, which is the place to put invasive species stuff so that the people who can do something about it have access to that invasive species stuff. But anyway, it's from Europe. It was first seen in Minnesota in 1993. I think the fact that there's only one or a few sightings in the area, speaks well for that. It's declared to be an invasive in Wisconsin. I was doing some orchid stuff over in the UP of Michigan this summer, and it was just everywhere, truly invasive at that point. But it's not listed as invasive in Michigan, but you think it might be. So it's moving westward from the East Coast. Let's see what else. I was going to say that to me that flower looks kind of like a gradient motif. That I'm probably dating myself. Zoom in a bit here. It just it has this bowl-shaped thing here with a little spout that looks just like you pour something out of it. Oh, that was great. Careful when you have fat fingers. So, some orchids are rare. They're all rare to some degree because they're maybe not easy to find. But from a DNR botanist kind of perspective, they're listed as rare. And so this is the ram's head lady slipper, the Cypripedium eritinum. And it's a real small little thing. It's hard to find, and everybody's looking for it. It's listed as threatened by the DNR. And what I didn't know until recently when I was reading some literature is that that particular reference said that after about an hour of after being fertilized with the pollination process, then this sepal closes over the flower. Now, I don't know what the adaptation is to have that happen, but that's what it said, and I looked through my photos and said, well, there is one where that has covered the lid, that inflated pouch. We're still in one of the Cypripediums here, they all have some kind of inflated pouch. I tell people that being on their knees is the best search position for this one if you're looking for it. I'm relatively tall, and so when I look down, all I see is a tiny little profile from the top. If I get down low, then I can see a larger profile and have much better luck finding small orchids. In Minnesota, there are 3 endangered, 3 threatened, and 4 special concern. So given that there's about 50 orchids and 10 of them are listed, then that's about 20% of the orchids are listed and need special attention or concern or protection. So this is kind of cool, and if you've seen some of these yourself, I'd be open to hearing about it, but some orchid species have a rare white form for the flower. And form here is a taxonomy term that's used for plants that have a slight variation from the norm. So on the left is the pink lady slipper that we've been talking about. And on the right is a pink lady slipper, and it's the exact same structure and everything, it just happens to have a white flower form. And so it's just striking when you find these, just gorgeous, they just smell white. You could ask for more. Has anyone seen a white? Oh, Jim? Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's right, I saw your photos. We'll get to that in a minute, okay? can't see it. Anyway, this is the showy lady slipper, the Cypripedium reginae. On the left is the normal color, and then this is the white form of that. And both of these photos were taken out in the floodwood area just west of Duluth. I think that's where Jim got his picture of it also. This is another white form. This plant that we're looking at is the lesser purple fringed orchid, the Lanthanthrocycodes. The normal coloring is over on the left, and the white form is here on the right. When I first found this out in Saxon Bog, this white one, that one over there is from the Boulder Lake Environmental Learning Center area. When I first found this one, I thought perhaps it was a natural hybrid between the two fringed orchids that we have in the area. But again, my contact here, Welby Smith, after looking at photos, he thought perhaps it was best described as the white form, and so we're in the white form part of my presentation, so it's the white form. It's not a hybrid. So white flowers are one thing, but for a long time I've told people, you know, white flowers, well, okay, that's really cool, but there really couldn't be such a thing as an albino plant. You know, they're photosynthetic, they're producing their own food. Being albino would imply no chlorophyll, no photosynthesis going on, and they couldn't possibly exist. And then when I found this one last summer, I said, well, now I have to change my presentation because this is an albino orchid. Again, consulting with Welby Smith, he agrees. He said, this is really, really rare. This is as albino as any plant gets, even though you might be able to see a little color here, but that's an albino plant. And as I said, plants need to do photosynthesis to make food, and so it doesn't make any sense. This plant was fully formed, same size as the other ones in that little area. Leaves were completely formed and ready. There were flower buds when I first found it, and I did check on them every 2 weeks to kind of see how this is going. And then the flowers opened, and then seed pods were expanding, suggesting that fertilization had in fact taken place. And so I've marked this very, very accurately and intend to try to see what happens next season. Does it come up albino, or does it come up photosynthetic, or does it not come up? I don't know, we'll just have to see. But again, Welby Smith has really encouraged me to do that, to keep track of that and see what happens. So again, what's going on here is that this particular orchid has developed a really strong relationship to one of those mycorrhizal fungal partners. That's what we call mycorrhizal relationship between a plant and a fungus. And so clearly, the fungal partner has just been feeding enough nutrients and carbs and things for this plant to go to full maturity without doing photosynthesis. So that speaks to that the importance of that fungal partner. Has anyone had any encounter of any kind of albino plant before? I just couldn't believe it. It's just a few miles out of town, right along the Munger Trail. So easy for me to check on it. I didn't say anything. I didn't post it on Facebook or anything. I didn't want to lose it by trampling or something. Stay tuned. You know, some orchids are adapted to live without any chlorophyll. These are not albinos. They have pigmentation. They just don't have any leaves, and they don't have any photosynthesis going on. One of them is the early coral root, the Corellarhiza trifida. It has a flower with a white lip on it, usually a fairly small plant. The spotted coral root is the second most commonly seen orchid in the Arrowhead region. The pink lane slipper is the most common. Spotted coral root is the next most common orchid. And it has this beautiful lip that has, it's white with these little spots, and this is the name spotted coral root. The third one we're going to look at is the striped coral red. This is the biggest typically, and it has a really, really pretty flower. It has this lip that is purple with white stripes at the base of the lip, and the lateral petals and the sepals have this candy stripe thing going on. So we find this one, which is really beautiful thing. Anybody see it?
How big is it in real life? Is it the size of the?
Yeah, how big is it? Maybe as big as mine, down to the first joint, something like that. It's not wow, but so let's see. So they're not albino. They certainly have pigmentation. And see where I'm going with this. Yeah, so they have no chlorophyll. They don't have any leaves. They don't need leaves. And these things are just absolutely happy living underground for years, literally years. The only reason they put this flower stalk up is for producing flowers. And because they're not doing photosynthesis, they're living subterranean, they live subterranean, and they are getting food from their fungal partner. And so they're just grooving underground. It takes a lot of work, a lot of energy to put up this flower thing. And it's just for reproduction. And I see it where I see a nice grouping of them. I don't see anything for 5 years, whatever. It's just normal in orchids. They're just that weird. Some people, I'm convinced, think their orchids in their yard or pasture have died. And it's just orchids. They do that. So, endlessly frustrating if you think you're going to see it again next year. Some of them are more faithful in coming out each year. These are notorious, just living underground. They're completely happy. Yes, sir.
So is this a symbiotic relationship with a fungi? What does a fungi get from the orchid?
Okay, wow. So we've got a really good question there, and I'll try to explain it. The question is, he's asking about, is there a two-way street here? Can the fungus and the plant get something out of this? And it turns out that most photosynthetic plants, just think of a tree. It's making carbohydrates, storing them in the roots. The fungal partner, or this fungus thing is everywhere. Lots of plants, maybe 100% of the native plants have that. They can tap into the roots, get some of that carb stuff as energy. The fungus is breaking down organic matter in the soil, so it has an abundance of minerals, things like nitrogen, and it can pass that back to the photosynthetic plant. In that case, it's a symbiotic relationship. So they're both better off because of the relationship. They're both doing well with that. In this particular case, between this organism and the fungus, it is strictly a one-way shot. The fungus taps into the roots of this thing, and these things don't have hair roots. They're just coarse roots, and so the mycelium for the fungus acts as an extended root system, and it taps into the roots of these coral roots, and it passes along some of those carbs that it has accumulated, and the minerals, and this thing grows. As far as we know, the fungus gets nothing in that relationship. Why do they do that? Stay tuned. But I hope that was the answer. Okay. So it's really a complex thing. What they're doing right now is they're digging these up. I mean, scientifically, they're taking the roots of these things and they're trying to break them down and analyze what kind of fungus is helping this particular orchid species. And anyway, it's a complex thing. It's part of the reason why when you transplant them, they often die. Because if that fungal partner doesn't do well, the orchid isn't going to do well. Let's take a quick look at some of the different orchids in the area. Oh, so the showy lady slipper, we have touched on that a little bit. This is probably the largest orchid that Gooseberry Falls, there's some, and I swear they were darn near 4 feet high, and they're protected fencing and stuff. Really a fairly common orchid. That doesn't mean it's easy to find, but Sometimes it's a single stem, sometimes it's a tight clump, sometimes it's just this generalized distribution of them. But beautiful, beautiful flower. And it's in the stippropedium, the pollinator goes in here, can't get out because the edge here is turned in. The only way out is through this back little hole and right where the polonium column exists. So here's the yellow lady slipper. There's a large variety and a small variety of yellow, and a rule of thumb, I tell people a rule of thumb for me is I put my pants on before my shoes. It's not a formal thing, it just works for me, and so here's a rule of thumb that actually uses a thumb. That's my thumb, and so for this small one, the flower is about the size of my thumb, and the large yellow lady slipper is like 2 thumbs, but I had to take the picture, so I could use 2 thumbs. But that's just, it can help you when you're trying to figure out what it is that you're looking at. And these are really common too in the area. You can use the lateral petals also to perhaps help identify it. And I'll just point out that here's the lateral petal on the large yellow lady slipper, and it's said to be a yellow-green kind of thing. On the small yellow lady slipper, the lateral petals are most often described as like a mahogany color. But nature is not that rigid, and so you can find plants that are intermediate in size and color, but in general, this is a rule of thumb where you can tell which of those varieties it is that you're looking at. Here's that lesser purple fringed orchid again. That's that same picture we were looking at, as I said, that was below the dam along the stream out at Boulder Lake Environmental Learning Center. These like to have their feet wet. I just wanted to zoom in a little bit. So here is the lip, that modified petal. It looks like 3 things, but it's just the lip, and it has 3 lobes on it. Each of them are fringed, and thus the name fringed orchid. I've been telling you that a lot of orchids use trickery, and this one actually has a nectar spur right there, that long thing down to here. Probably has a drop of nectar in it, and that's just an extension of the lip. It's just an extension out the back of the lip, and of course, we would think maybe a butterfly or a moth or something with a fairly long tongue would be the pollinator that this plant, this species, is trying to attract, because they have that long spur, and so it means nothing if you don't have an insect that can reach in there to get the nectar. So there are species that have rewards. Whoa, here's another fringed orchid. This is the ragged fringed orchid, and this one is really, really easy to miss because, again, it's fairly tall, not that tall. So here's the stem, there's leaves on it, and then here's the inflorescence, where the inflorescence is just that flower column for these plants. And here again, it has the lip with 3 lobes, but it's much more ragged. The fringes are more deeply cut. The lobes look much shallower in size. So this is the ragged fringed orchid. Yeah, it's a wonderful plant to find, just a little harder to spot.
What time of year would you want?
Okay, so she's asking what time of the year.
What month?
For these fringed orchids,
Yeah.
the purple and this one, it's midsummer. I don't even look for them until the middle of July. And then they're probably around for a month or so. This one is a beautiful orchid. It's the tall white bog orchid. It's usually on floating mats. Next, I've stepped through holes in this stuff. It's quite a shock because there's no bottom. Beautiful flower. Some of them are not showy at all, and so this one is the green bog orchid. Here's the plant, lots of leaves on it. Here's the inflorescence. Here's what the flower looks like. So the thought is, it does have an aroma, but color is not there. And so the thought is maybe it's pollinated by something at night going on. Color isn't important in that idea. orchids are really small and showy, like this small round leaf orchid. It's maybe 8-10 inches high. It has one leaf. Here's the stem, and then the flower is to die for. It's just so pretty, and there'll be a lot of them. It's just a really beautiful little thing. Here's another one, the dragon's mouth. This happens to be in a fen out in the Boulder Lake area. Real small, one leaf again, just a small little thing. Some people say it looks like a dragon's mouth with maybe some horns sticking up. That's where the name comes from. Fairly early in the spring, or in the summer. Here's one I really need to zoom in and try to share this with you. This is a mechanical orchid. And this one, the lip is on top. It's the only one I'm showing you where the lip is up on top. And there's a hinge right here. Here's the column with these little wings on it. Pollinator sees this yellow beard stuff and thinks pollen grain. So it comes whipping in, lands on it. The weight of it brings it down. The hinge releases, brings it down. The pollinator is trapped here against the column. First thing it encounters is the female part, drops off any polonium that it has. As it tries to escape, it can pick up more polonium and try it again. And then this resets where this will reset for the next pollinator to be lured into this little process. There, I did it again. Sorry, folks. Do any favors. Anyway, I call it a mechanical orchid. Here's probably the smallest orchid. This is the green adder's mouth. And this is the size of it. That's typical size, so really, really small. Might have like 80 flowers in the little inflorescence there. Just super tiny, probably a mosquito is pollinated. Thousands and thousands of seeds in something like this. I find it in a variety of places. I found it out in the bog. I found it in places where it's absolutely dry, like just pine needles. Yes, great.
Are small flowers like that pollinated by ants or small flies?
Yeah, probably not ants. We don't know about ants, but certainly flying insects, even mosquitoes. If I wasn't speaking loud enough there, mosquitoes are tiny, tiny bees. I mean, some of the bees are really super tiny. So, then here's the slimmest one. This is the slender lady's tresses. Here's the leaves at the base of the plant. The stem goes way up here, and then there's the spiral of flowers at the top. So I describe it as a piece of uncooked spaghetti noodle that has some real pretty flowers on it. It's that skinny. You want to look at any of these. So just some white flowers at the top. This is probably the latest blooming orchid. This is September. Actually, I photographed it in the first week in October. This nodding lady's tresses. It's been recently renamed to Sphinx lady's tresses, but all the resources, your list, books, I'll still call it nodding lady's tresses. We find it in gravel pits around on Minnesota Point. It's just like, what are you doing here? You know? And because it's late in the season, the vegetation is mature and brown, and so here's this thing, this white thing that you can see way off. It's like, yes. Where I photographed this one, it's in a gravel pit out by Boulder Lake, and last year I found like 5 plants. This year I found 72 or 75 of them in bloom. So again, orchids are so unpredictable, which is part of the fun. But it's a beautiful plant. So sometimes you run into things that aren't orchids, you know, like this fringed polygala or polygala, as I hear it pronounced, and just some other ones that you might, you know, think are orchids. But the message here is just don't despair. Ask somebody or take a picture and send it, or use iNaturalist to figure it out. Well, that's really the end of that, and some resources. Again, those 2 books I mentioned. Minnesota Wildflowers, the website is up to date and accurate and comprehensive, and amazing what volunteers have done with that thing. Native Orchid Conference is an organization in North America that focuses on native orchids, high naturalistic seed. So maybe we have a minute for some questions. If, Jim?
Given this unusual weather
Yeah.
in this one, how do you think that's going to affect the sprouting and
Okay.
blooming this year?
So the question is, what do you think this weather is going to do? This unusual winter is going to do to stuff? My answer is pretty definitive. I have no idea. I hear on the radio almost every day where somebody is saying what they think is going to happen, and man, the trees might suffer, they might lose their blossoms if there's a freeze. My maple trees have been running sap loose according to the squirrels for quite a while. Seems like to me that it's just going to be a crazy time. And then the question is, will we get a really hard freeze, or is this just going to continue? I have no idea. I can barely drive my own stop. I'm sure it's possible. Other questions? Yes, sir.
When the seed pack is swollen and the seeds are mature and they're ready to go, how far do they expect the seeds to travel? Is it a short distance, or it just depends upon the wind entirely? I could see them blowing out of their territory.
Absolutely.
easily.
And I have stories that I'd love to tell, maybe just one where there's an orchid that we see on Isle Royal, or that same orchid is in the Apostle Islands. I've seen it on the Apostle Islands. You can look across the lake. You can see Silver Bay and the North Shore. And it's because those seeds can be transported hundreds of miles in the air. Okay. The question is, why has that never been found in Minnesota, that particular orchid? Because again, seeds are really dispersed and it's really close. It's sort of like an orchid that Jennifer and I found a couple of summers ago, where it had never been seen in St. Louis County before. And so I was able to work with the herbarium after we located it where it was, and now there's a specimen in the herbarium. In Raleigh's book with the range maps, he looked at every orchid specimen in the herbariums around Minnesota, the one in Duluth here, the cities, St. John's University, and so his maps show every place that there's an orchid specimen in Minnesota. There wasn't any for St. Louis County, but now there is, because we went and took the curator out there to get an orchid specimen. But the point is, and there again, I found that same species on Minnesota Point, 1,000 or 2,000 feet from, in Wisconsin Point, really close to St. Louis County, but why isn't it there in Minnesota Point, just across the ship canal in Wisconsin, where it's growing? And I'm not answering your question directly, but it's an amazing how this all works. How can those things that are wind dispersed not be showing up really unexpected? Maybe one more question, and then we can direct. Go ahead.
I was wondering if anything's known about the fungal partner, so to speak. How specific is the fungus to the orchid? And if it is specific, how do we explain an invasive orchid that came from somewhere else?
Well, yeah, I don't know the answer to that specific one, but yeah, the question is, researchers are trying to figure it out. But again, is it a one-to-many thing from the orchid side? One orchid can use multiple different fungal partners, and then one-to-many from the other side, where here's a fungus. I wonder how many orchids this thing could connect up with and so forth. But as far as what fungus is working for that non-native orchid, again, I don't know any of that. Good question. And again, stay tuned. This is so exciting. When I go to the conference every year, there's always research on us, what they're finding out about hybrids and all that. So I think we'll just have to stop there. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for sharing with us your knowledge and your passion. We appreciate it. If anybody wants to stick around and take a look at some of the resources that he's brought, some of the samples, that is fine to do. Before you go, I didn't announce that our speaker who canceled in January will be with us next month, Ryan Pennessy, to talk about camera trapping. So the second Thursday of March, he will be with us. As you leave this day, it would be really helpful if you can get your folding chairs back up against the wall. And there are some white tables that need to come back out and be surrounded by chairs as well. Thank you all. Be safe. Be well.